Hello, everyone. Did you have a nice lunch? Yes. Okay. So now that we are returning from our break, we are going to try to combine all the lessons that we had in the morning session, starting with the knowledge about and the understanding about Paul of Tarsus, then going through self-knowledge, and after that also combining the idea of thoughts, how they work, as Luis presented to us. Forgive and set yourself free. So, by understanding how the thought process happened, we will today realize the importance of starting thinking more about our thoughts, be more mindful of our feelings, of our actions, and of course what we shelter within ourselves. In the Beatitudes, Jesus said, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy." Mercy consists in forgetting and forgiving offenses. It is proper for the advanced soul to forget offenses and to be above the insults that might be directed towards it. Well, from this we realize that we are not still evolved souls. We are in the process. We are trying to self-knowledge, to understanding, to everything that we've been trying to learn from Spiritism and put it into practice, to realize that, changes need to be made within ourselves, and that in order for us to evolve and to reach this path, there are some things that we have to do about this. So, in the question 886, Kardec asks, what is the true meaning of the word charity as Jesus understood it? It's interesting because we are talking about forgiveness. And then we go to a question that talks about charity, what it is to be charitable. And the answer is actually very interesting when the Spirit mentioned to us the importance of benevolence, indulgence, and forgiveness. So if we wanted to practice charity, if we wanted to put love in action as we normally express ourselves when talking about charity, there is no way for us to achieve that without using benevolence, indulgence, and forgiveness. And forgiveness is the subject of our studies today. So sometimes forgiveness comes with a very high price. It's not so easy for us, just to say to people, okay, I forgive you. And most commonly, we understand the idea of forgiving, but not necessarily forgetting. And this is when the problem actually reaches us in our inner self. Like Luis was explaining this morning, we live in this hell about harboring hatred, holding grudges about someone that doesn't even realize what we do about them. So it's absolutely a personal thing. So one thing that human beings do that is very intriguing is how many times we have to pay for one mistake. And the answer is 1,000 times. Humans are the only animals on earth who pay 1,000 times on the same mistake. Why we use the word animals? Because animals don't do that. People here that have their pets at home, they know that how true it is. When our pets misbehave and we are really mad with them, they realize, they understand. But after a while, they come to us with all their love and unconditional love. So they forgive us. They are capable of forgiving us, of putting behind something, a misaction that they did. In terms of human beings, we don't do that. We remember the fault over and over and over again. And when we engage in our confrontation, how many times we catch ourselves saying, "Oh, but do you remember when I forgave you, but I still have not forgotten what you have done. So we keep repeating that and pointing our fingers to others. So the thing is, when we are engaged in these dynamics, it's very difficult for us to say that we are ridding ourselves of a negative sentiment, right? And so is it fair for us to keep on blaming the other for the same mistakes over and over again? I imagine all of you will say, no, it's not. But how many of you would say, I don't do that? Please don't raise your hands. Okay? We know deep inside how hard it is for us to do that. And every time, what happens every time we remember the mistake of the other? We live the same anguish over and over again. It's like, our thoughts are so powerful. When we start thinking, and with the short waves, like Louise explained, more powerful thinking, we bring all the emotions to our physical body. And we are going to be seriously compromised. We're going to seriously compromise our physical body. So it's very important to understand how important it is for us to remember and to start actually putting those mistakes behind. A human being, it's only your job to forgive, to love, to heal, and to grow, and of course to forgive always. Forgive 70 times 7. This is the teaching that we learned from Jesus. And there is an interesting story about Chico Xavier that we can find in this book, where a lady comes to Chico Xavier and talk to him and say that she's really giving a hard time with her family members, and husband is misbehaving, children driving her crazy, and then Chico reminds her the need to forgive 7 times 7. And she says, well, Chico, I already did that. And he replied to her, well, Emmanuel is by my side, and he's saying the following, that you have to forgive 70 times 7 for each mistake. Wow. So it goes with what we were saying before. How many times are we going to be blamed for the same mistake? Thousands of times. 70 times 7. So it's that the understanding that we have to have for us. So what are the physical aspects? What is when we have those negative feelings, those negative emotions, such as lack of the ability of forgiveness, holding grudge, how they impact our physical body? So we see here that to forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover the prisoner was you. Everything that Louise was explaining to us this morning. So we are the ones that are actually contaminating our physical body, our mind, our spirits, of course, but this is the part where we talk about physical, and not even realizing that. Living the anguish for over and over again. So it would be very good if we could resort to a pill, Forgive All. It's a pill that unfortunately is not yet available on the counter, not even with prescription, but it should be something that with Spiritism we should be able to do with ourselves, to try to put in practice that. So when we start holding grudges, we start affecting the command of our bodily selves. So we start affecting our health, and it's going to impact on us. When you feel hatred towards someone, or you have that strong feeling, we immediately feel something in our stomach, and we have a headache. So it's there, the signs are there, right? So Deepak Chopra, in his book, he explains about releasing toxic emotions. He also explains, Dr. Deepak Chopra, about the need for us to start dealing with any kind of what is called toxic emotions. Not necessarily the one that we are talking about now, forgiveness, but forgiveness is a huge component in what we are doing negatively to our body. So he proposes some steps that we are not going to analyze here, but if you would like to go look at, you can look deeply at his books. He proposed like 7 steps for us to start dealing with our emotions, and in particular with the need to learn how to forgive. So what is the most damage, who is the most damaged on holding toxic energy? And of course, it's always us. So there is a story that Chico Xavier said that when we want to do bad for others, when we want to harm others, we are actually giving others the copy and keeping the original with ourselves. So we are much more impacted by any kind of negative emotion that we may have than the one that we are actually trying to harm or to hurt. So it's very important to learn to let go of the toxic emotions. And the best way to understand forgiveness is to realize that forgive is, and to ask for forgiveness is the best use of one's energy, and also one of the most important paths to self-healing. We are always very mindful about our physical situation, about how can we improve physically speaking, emotionally speaking, spiritually speaking. And this is a tremendous way, a tremendous tool that we have in our hands to do it. Why is it so hard? Sometimes, we know the theory, but sometimes it's very hard for us to realize, how can I do that? Of course, we had a very important topic here this morning when Aisha talked to us about self-knowledge, about perhaps using the apps for the 13 virtues and, start analyzing ourselves. St. Augustine actually, go to bed and think about how you can improve. And there is a saying that I think is very important for us, because when we are thinking about improving, we are not going to be comparing ourselves to others, because sometimes, depending with whom we are comparing ourselves to, it may be perhaps for this incarnation an attainable goal. But the saying goes like this: you only have the obligation of being better than you were yesterday. So this is what we owe to ourselves, to be better today than we were yesterday. And if you keep on doing that, we will actually see the transformation. And why is it so hard? Because from previous incarnations, not having the understanding, the knowledge, the conscience of what we know today, we've been striving in error. So it's easier for us to go with this flow of the old self than to break free and to actually start putting an effort for our transformation. Dr. Everett Worthington also proposes a methodology, a way for us to work in the sense of forgiveness. And he proposes 5 steps that is called REACH. Let's say what he presents here. Let's see. REACH, recall the hurt. We have to be able to deal with the situation, to recall, to meditate about it, and to see how it really affects us. Empathize with the one who has committed the hurt. Many times, we are very eager, very fast in pointing our fingers to others' mistakes. But we never think why that person is acting the way it is. That's why in the Bible we also find an important teaching. Before saying anything else against your neighbor, put her sandals for a week. And then you come back and you are going to analyze. Sometimes, yes, people do hurt us. But they are living situations that perhaps if we were in their other place, we would be acting very bad ourselves. So it's important to empathize with them. Altruistic gift. Offer the altruistic gift of forgiveness. If everything, we are remembering the anger, the hurt, we are empathizing with that, and now we go to a third stage that it is, what do I want to be? Do I want to be that person that will forever keep those negative emotions within myself, or am I going to liberate myself from that? Commit. Because, we can go easily in the first 3 steps, but without commitment, and commitment to whom? To ourselves. Without commitment, we will not be capable of doing that. And hold on to forgiveness. So that's why I thought it was really important, very interesting the way he presents here, because it's very much in the same flow that we want to work in terms of Spiritism. There is a very important and interesting movie, in case you wanted to watch, is this movie that's called 5 Minutes of Heaven, where the main character, when he was young, he killed another young person because of the war. It was in Ireland. And after a few years, he could not liberate himself from this negative emotion. And so they, and with a TV program and etc., they put together a set where he would have the opportunity of meeting the brother of whom he had killed 19 years before. And so the whole process is a process of actually working in the need of actually forgiving, of being forgiven, and how much it actually weighs also on the hearts, on the thoughts, on the emotions of those that have committed the hurt. Recently also had on Korngold Radio a very important show that showed to us that even here in the United States we have an Institute of Forgiveness, and you can access and listen to it again in KorngoldRadio.com. So let's talk now a little bit about the spiritual aspects of forgiveness. I love this phrase. Am I not destroying my enemies when I make friends of them? When we think and meditate about the teachings of Jesus, when he says, love your enemies, understanding what we understand today with the Spiritist, we see that this is much more important for us than actually just, a basic religious precept that we have to go through, or just because Jesus said that. Of course, at that time, we were so young, spiritually speaking, to be able to understand what actually encompasses the words of Jesus. But today, knowing about the aspects that link both the one that is the subject of hatred and the one that hatred the other, we understand the importance of liberating ourselves from any negative emotion, and specifically on how important it is for us to liberate ourselves from hatred. So in this picture here, we see the effect that someone that hates the other so much provokes in her physical constitution. So here, she is invisible to the living one, but is still not knowing of the spiritual presence around her. She still feels the negative impact, the wavelengths of hatred that reach her. And in this case, it's very intriguing also because she's actually incarnate. So we are not going to think about only discarnate situations, that discarnate toward the incarnate. It is what we learn in obsession, when we study obsession. So it's actually the thought. If the thought provenient from a spirit, a discarnate or an incarnate spirit, is a negative one, it's going to reach us. it is going to affect us. And when I envelop myself in love, in forgiveness, in understanding, in benevolence, in indulgence, I will protect myself in a way that even if I have spirits, alive or dead, coming to me with that energy and load that would actually provoke a lot of harm to my physical constitution, it's not going to reach us. We are actually vibrating in different levels. And little by little, if we are capable of doing that, we are going to be seeing this change. It's interesting because there was at the beginning, not the beginning, but many years ago when I was working at Spiritist Center, still in Brazil, I used it to open the door for the people that would come to receive passes. That was my job at the time. It was really initiating. And I remember that was week after week there was this young lady that she would come and I could see and feel so much bitterness in her heart. And learning all that, listening to lectures such as this one, I said, you know what, I'm going to do an experiment. And I decided to assume that lady as my case. Now she's going to be my case. And every week when she arrived and it would take having the passes, I would, from the door, which was not actually my assignment, but I would do that anyway, I would be enveloping her in love and I would think about her heart and, breaking all that negativity, etc. And I mean, week after week she would come and living like this. One day, I opened the door for her, and she was there, and she said, hello. I said, wow. She never said hello. She never had a smile on her face. I don't know if it was because of me, but I mean, in any case, of course not. But in any case, when we actually put our energy into love, into helping others, if we are patient enough, because, they also have to be patient with us. We don't change overnight. If we are patient enough, if we send this loving vibration, we will see the transformation. But it's easier for us just to say, oh, this person, it doesn't worth my time, or it's never going to change. This is not a concept that we emphasize or that we will talk about in Spiritist. We will talk about forgiveness and growing always. So Nelson Mandela once said, this is not a phrase of Nelson Mandela. Resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies. Which is, after this presentation that we had today, we will actually be capable of understanding even more how it impacts ourselves, and how we are going to be affected by that. So, the process of forgiveness are the ones that we are going to present here, the 5 steps. Indignation, comprehension, compassion, mercy, and forgetfulness. So these are the steps that, according to Spiritist, we will go through when we are in the process of analyzing the hurt and how we are going to be able to put that behind us. But now we have another important process, that is the process of self-forgiveness. We sometimes are very hard on ourselves. This morning, we were presented with an example that are going to be very important for us now to meditate about, which is the example of Paul of Tarsus. Can you imagine if after everything that Paul as Saul has done, and it was not like Haroldo presented, it was not easy stuff, it was really, really hard. He was the responsible for the first killing of a Christian, of a follower of Christ, which was Stephen. Then Jesus appeared to him. He realizes that he is wrong. What if he would give himself to self-pity? Not forgive himself about what he had was really heavy, really bad in that same incarnation. Well, probably we wouldn't be Christians today. I don't know. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Paul. And I think we actually owe Christianity to all the work of dissemination that he has done. But can you imagine if he were not able to forgive himself, to be true to himself, to acknowledge the error, and to be brave enough to reborn from the ashes and start working in the way he had to work? So this is the same thing we had to do with ourselves. Of course he felt guilty. Of course he felt remorse and repented from his errors. But he came to the point that he had to self-accept him, understanding that it was because he was ignorant of what was going on. He didn't know Jesus the way he started getting to know Jesus when he first appeared to him. And of course, after that, the grandiosity, which is the renewed behavior. So in every process that we go through, we are not necessarily just difficult and intransigent, strict with others. We are that with ourselves as well. Sometimes we do not forgive our errors. We do not forgive our mistakes. And it's very common for us to see that in the Spiritist community. When we first start getting to know Spiritist, when we first start learning about the processes and all the Spiritist philosophy, we go through a huge commotion. It's a lot of contradictory feelings that fight within ourselves. Because we were one way, and now I understand that the way I was not the best way to be. And I know what I have to be. I can look before me where I have to reach, but it's still very hard. I'm still here and I want to reach there. And so all this process about thinking, oh my God, I did that, and now I learned Spiritism that I shouldn't have done that. So it's when we have to start this process, the same road of Damascus that Paul went through. This process of self-healing, of self-forgiving, in order for us to rise in a renewed behavior. This is what normally I call the 3 R's of Spiritism, which is the following. Repentance. The first step for us to start renew ourselves in the situation is repentance. So related to heart purity, because it's an inward, sincere state of the heart, of mind, that sees the exceeding wrongness of the error committed. But we cannot stop here. If we stop here, we are not going to be able to go through the process of growing, of using our possibilities in this incarnation. Then we go to the second step, which is to repair, the reparations step, to make amends. So we have to be willing to make amends and to repair the errors we have committed. It requires courage to face the consequences of our actions and to admit them publicly whenever necessary. So, repentance, repair. It's not enough for us just to say, oh, I didn't know better, so, everything is excused. No, we have to go through the process of making amends, of growing, of being capable of facing our previous inferiority and going in the direction of what we are going to become. And the third one, which is renewal. If we follow the inspiration of our hearts and also fulfill the needs of our hearts, we will reach the third state, which is to find ourselves completely renewed in a process of regeneration. We are trying to get there. We cannot say that we are there yet. Okay, I think we are more in the second phase, but already understanding that there is a third phase and that it's going to happen to us. We are going to be renewing. We are going to be inhabitants of happier worlds be able to be the ones that will help to conduct others, to enlighten others. We are in this process. So this is a very important process that we have to go through. Also because we understand and we know that the process of deep guilty in a negative way will also open us to negative influences, to spiritual attachments. Because they will take a lot of praise, they will really feel happy when they see that they are trying to diminish us, when we keep only thinking, I'm not worthy of that. Do you know how hard sometimes it is for us to come here and to talk about this? I'm thinking what I was preparing that, especially that is why when we talk about how many times we blame the other. Well, I don't see my husband, my son here. Or is he? Okay, so I feel more relieved. But I'm saying, how can I say that in front of my son when so many times I blame him from the same mistakes over and over again? It's so hard for us. But even knowing that we are still far from this model that we are learning from Spiritist, that we are trying to put in practice for ourselves, we still have to come here and to tell everyone at the same time that we are telling ourselves that we all need that we all need to understand that we have, our process. But in this process, we should never conform in staying all the time behind. In this process, we have to work for the constant improvement of ourselves. What better example do we have than the parable of the prodigal son? Just to remind us, remember that there's this man that he had 2 sons. One of them decided to stay with the father and work with the father, and like the other one said, give my money, my inheritance, and I'm going to the world. Did all the crazy things he had to do, and after a lot of suffering, he realized how wrong he was, and he returned to home. And he was not expecting the forgiveness of the father. Here, we are not talking only about filial love. We are talking in a metaphorical way about the love of the Father to all of us, of always giving us our freedom, the free will that we have, the possibility that we have to learn from ourselves, but receiving us back when we are ready to understand that sometimes we have been tracking roughly paths and that we should go in a different direction. So this is the example, the ultimate example of forgiveness, of receiving us back, of giving us all the love and all the opportunities that we may have to continue our process of growth. So it's another important aspect for us to realize that in spite of everything, and in spite of the so many misconducts, errors that we still commit in this incarnation, we are loved. We are loved by our Father in heaven. We are loved by all of those that occupy themselves with us. And we are always given the opportunity to do right this time. So when we think about all of that, and the mercy, blessed are the merciful, and the mercy that we receive from our Heavenly Creator, who could not try to follow the same example and extend that to our brothers and sisters? This is what we learn here. This is what forgiveness is all about. It's about us learning to make love grow within ourselves. We only are going to become pure spirits when we learn to have love, when we have true love for our brothers and sisters, when we learn that we are all brothers and children of the same God. And in this process, instead of criticizing, pointing our fingers, holding grudges, we are going to start, sending people that are in our way, that to make our way sometimes a little more challenging. We are going to be sending them this love, these vibrations, and help in the process of their changes as well. And Jesus also taught us the same need of forgiveness. Father, forgive them because they do not know what they do. We are in the same situation. How many times we are because we do not know what we are doing. So now, more conscious, with more knowledge, we are more responsible for our actions. And of course, we have to try to do better this time. The important thing here, if we have actually to give a message, and of course, when we prepare, when we come together such as this one, we have so many opportunities of being with loving hearts, of learning new concepts, of being able to meditate about everything that everyone is giving to us during the day. But the aspect of forgiveness and self-forgiveness is something that we really have to bring for ourselves. Because it is actually what is going to help us to go to the next step. If we keep on lingering and holding grudges and holding negative emotions within ourselves, and above all, to not be able to forgive ourselves, it's going to be very difficult for us to break free with all of that and go after in a productive way to construct, to build what we were called for in this lifetime. So yes, we are going to acknowledge the failures that we have committed. Yes, we are going to try to make amendments, but yes, we are going to renew ourselves and to shine and to show this light and to show this love to each and every one. And to end our presentation, I'd like to show this slide as well. That is, forgiveness is the fragrance the violet sheds on the hill that has crushed it. It's beautiful, isn't it? Beautiful. I thought it was a very beautiful concept. So regardless of what people are doing to us, this should never be the motive for us to keep on hurting others. We should learn from nature what we should do. And no matter what, continue spreading this light, this perfume that we have so graciously received from Spiritist, that is the Spiritist doctrine. You will not be able to read the poem. And I thank you so much for this opportunity in Chicago, for once more being able to be here with you.